Go ahead.
All right. Good afternoon. This is Poetry, Prose, and Personalities. I'm Thasia Anne, and today I have in from Cleveland, one of my favorite Cleveland poets, and that's John Burroughs. We met, let's see, I think Snowetry at Megan Collins when she had the bookstore in Northeast.
Yeah.
I think that was the first time I met you. And we're just going to ask John a few questions and see why he's in Erie, and glad that we have a chance to talk with him today. So what brings you to Erie today?
Well, I'm here to read at Calamari's Squid Row tonight for Poetry Night. Erie has always been one of my favorite places to read ever since Snowetry got its origin here. And I haven't been here, though, since 2015.
Wow.
So I'm glad to finally be back and see old friends. And
how did this Snowetry thing start? Because I was invited to it, and that was my first experience with a lot of the bigger name poets that were from out of there.
Well, Snowetry is our winter word fest that Diane Borsnick and I have kind of hosted for several years. It originated with Diane and me getting invited to read at the Last Wordsmith Bookshop, which was in Northeast Pennsylvania, run by Megan Collins. At that time, she didn't really know many of the Erie poets, and they didn't know about her bookstore. And so we came out to read, and we only had like 2 people showed up for the reading. And Megan felt really bad. Well, we had a great time. It was a beautiful bookstore, and we loved it. But she felt kind of bad that, we didn't get more audience, so she took us out to eat afterwards at some Italian restaurant in Erie. I don't remember which one. And we started talking, and I'm like, you know what? Just kind of as a joke, but I'm like, we should have a Snowetry, a winter word fest here coming up. We'll bring all kinds of people to your store. I said if we feature a lot of poets, then we'll get a lot of poets to come. And so what began as, I think we were originally going to call it a word stop or something.
Yeah.
But then we found out that there was another event somebody else organized called Wordstock, so we changed the name to Snowetry. And so there it began. And we moved on from there to trying to do a different venue every year. So we did Jim's Coffee House in Elyria, Ohio. We did Poets Hall. We did it at the Avalon Hotel.
I remember
we did it at Guide to Culture in Cleveland. So, it's cool.
A lot of fun. It really is. Not everybody read snow or winter poetry either, but I did, because I just felt like, hey, this is what it's for. So how did you personally get started in poetry itself? A kid, a teen, a college student?
Well, when I was a kid, I was actually failing 10th grade English. I had, this old lady, very nice old lady teacher, but just who I didn't feel any connection with. I was bored. I would go to English class and just want to nap on the desk. But at some point during the year, about 3/4 of the way through the year, she got ill and couldn't continue. So we got a new, young, attractive teacher, and here I was in 10th grade, the hormones are going. So it was Mrs. Nancy Donnelly, and she seemed very interested in the students, and I liked her, she seemed to like me. So it made me want to actually do homework and do assignments. So I wrote one of her assignments was to write a descriptive paragraph. And I wrote the descriptive paragraph and turned it in, and I got an A on it, which was a shock. I got an A in English, and she's like, oh, this is wonderful, this is poetry, you're a poet. Do you have any other poems? And of course I wanted, to impress her, so I said, yeah, I have a whole bunch of poems, even though I had none. And so then I started writing a bunch of stuff. And then, I ended up, by 12th grade, I was the editor of our high school poetry journal. And, after that, it just took off.
That's awesome. So at this point then, let's ask, When was the first one of your poetry books published? That exciting moment that all poets look for.
Well, I had random poems published from when I was, 17 on, but for many years, I wrote mostly for myself, kind of for therapy, for, to keep a log of my life, which when I was young, I thought was so important. I didn't realize, it's no more important than anybody else's. But it wasn't until about 2008, so this is like, I graduated high school in '84, so 24 years after high school, that I started getting involved in actually going to poetry readings and doing open mics and meeting other live poets instead of just reading books. And so, people, when I first started going to open mics, people would be like, do you have a poetry chapbook? I'd love to see that on the page. And my friend Diane Borsnick's were like, you could just make one yourself. So that's how it started out. I made my first poetry chapbook when I was, in my early 40s, just to kind of hand out at readings. And then, as I got to know more people and got more confident in sharing my poems with other people, that blossomed into getting published by others. But I'll always remember my first self-published one, which when I look back on it now, I'm kind of embarrassed by it, but
How long have you known Diane?
Since 2007. I actually met her on MySpace, for years.
MySpace.
I didn't know there were other poets doing what I, was interested in until MySpace. And I started meeting all these people of like interests and who actually lived around Cleveland. So I started meeting them in real life. And she was one of the first. Yeah,
she's such a sweetheart. I just love her. I started in like 7th grade. These people came into our classroom and they said they were doing a writing sampling of the students of Erie. And so after the people left, they said, okay, take out your pen and paper and write a poem. And I'd never written a poem before. However, 2 weeks previous to that, a young man across the street that I was actually better friends with his younger brother, but he got killed in Vietnam. So my first poem is called War, and it's about Viet Cong. And it made it in the sampler, and that was my start. And then I didn't do a lot with it because I married very young and created a turmoil life for myself by getting married so young. So it wasn't until I was coming out of the turmoil that I started writing about the turmoil and like putting it under my bed. And my oldest son, Mark, said, Mom, these are really good. You should do something with them. So a poet came to town in Albion, Pennsylvania. If you knew how big Albion is, it's like, and a poet was hired to come in town and teach the children how to get in touch with their feelings. And my son found out about this, and he went right to the poet. You got to meet your mom. It was like, he was 17. I was single at the time. So anyway, he got me started. He said the biggest tip I can give you in advice for writing poetry is find coffee shops to hang out in and just sit there and watch. And that's what I did, and that's where my stuff came from. But kind of similar in that it was through school that I got started. And very interesting. So you have a new book out?
Yeah, my new chapbook, Lost and Foundering, was published by Night Ballet Press in Ohio, which is run by the aforementioned Diane Borsnick. And she has a very unique artistic way of putting the books together,
so beautiful,
hand-bound with care. And a lot of these poems deal with losses I've experienced in the last 5 years, from my mother to my sister-in-law, my wife, and even Prince, who was a very big influence in my youth.
Yes, mine too.
So, it's kind of not as performance geared as a lot of my previous books, but I'm very proud of how, there's a lot of heart and soul.
Oh, it sure is.
Lost and Foundering.
All right. Well, is that what you'll be reading out of tonight?
I'm going to read primarily out of this book tonight.
Yeah, I'll make sure I have my tissues in it. So, what do you think is the next chapter? Are you going to continue doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm, next week I'm going to Connecticut to read at the National Beat Poetry Festival. And we've got a few more readings coming up in Frostburg, Maryland, and New York City by the end of the year. And then in 2019, I think I'm going to take a break from doing so many events and focus more on writing again, which
It happens. It's kind of like cycles. It's almost the way it has to be. And I truly envy the fact that you've been able to travel the way you did this summer. We're not that far from retirement, so maybe we'll do. I don't know if we're big travelers, world travelers, maybe little city travelers is more like it. But and I really had wanted to get to Cleveland this summer, but it just hasn't worked out. So, hopefully we will get that under our belt, especially
we'd love to have you soon sometime.
Sorry, the bee is taking over.
The poet bee.
Yes, you be a poet. It's not right.
Redefining beat poetry.
There you go. So with that, we'll end this part of the segment, and then we'll start up again when he's reading, and you'll get the whole production. So this is John Burroughs from Cleveland, and Thasia Anne, Poetry, Prose, and Personalities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chuck, and thank you, Erie, one of my favorite poetry cities, near and dear to my heart. And Calamari's is very cool as well, so I'm really pleased and privileged to be here for the first time since 2015. It's been way too long, and I'm just checking the time so I know how long I'm supposed to go. As Chuck said, I'm John Burroughs. I'm the editor-publisher for Crisis Chronicles Press. We just published our 100th title this year, which is also our 10th anniversary. So I'm excited about that, but even more excited to be here with you tonight, among old friends and new friends. For those who don't know me, I will start with an old poem that is a bit of an autobiography before I move on to the new stuff. This is entitled John Cage, Engaged and Uncaged. Sunken, funkin', telepunkin'. Tell a country bumpkin who I am, and then let him tell you. Both will tell it true, though their perspectives seem contradictory. I'm born of hickory and rectory, blind Bartimaeus and insightful inspectory, true tale and muddled myth on an identical trajectory. John Cage, or someone like him, is anyone like anyone more than anyone is unlike? Said disharmony does not exist. And even some of the peaceniks are pissed. Now, corn is not hominy, but hominy is corn. And care is not clothing, though care can be worn, and all can be born, and all can be torn, and loved, and forlorn, and warned, and scorned, and according to some father or brother or other, reborn, sunken, funkin', telepunkin', born of a couch potato and a pureed tomato. An almost dead and buried berater, blind hater, thin ice skater, war of horror, saint and horror, mental and governmental masturbator, and sooner or later, repeat reincarnator. I am a living death, an awakened dream, ash unconsumed, and a silent scream, reconcilable so-called contradiction and factual fiction. John Cage, uncaged, inadequately aged, and yet timeless a sublime mess, subconsciously clothed, yet consciously undressed, said less and better are no worse than best. Corn is harmony, and there is no disharmony, only harmonies to which our ears and our fears are unaccustomed. This is my latest chapbook, which was published by Night Ballet Press in the Cleveland area. It's called Lost and Foundering. Because many of the poems in here are depressing, I'm not going to read a whole lot of them, but I want to at least read this one, and maybe another later on. This is entitled Unfounded. In this city of lost places, my 15-year-old granddaughter is no longer hiding all the places she cuts herself to hide all the places she hurts. I imagine it's because she does not want to die, and the cutting makes her feel alive. Or because she feels dead inside. Or like hell. I can only speculate why, because she cannot tell. In my city of lost places, there are 6 urns, 2 wooden boxes, a metal canister, and 3 fancier ones from the funeral home full of ashes and bone bits. Our dogs Lucky and Lady, her 18-year-old cat Cricket, my mother-in-law, sister-in-law Sherry, and wife Jerry Lynn, because I cannot bear to bury them. In my city of lost places, there is a light that never goes out, and there is an out that never gets lit, and there is a fit that never gets fought, and there is an it that never gets sought or wrought. In my city of lost places, the oyster is my world, until it is not anymore, and yet still sometimes is. And there is a this that cannot be that, and there is an act that cannot be bliss. And it seems all things are hurting and healing and feeling like cutting themselves. In my city of lost places, a seamstress has come undone. A teacher has failed to master the lesson, and a doctor has caught his death. I imagine it's because she does not want to live, and the cutting makes her feel dead, or loved inside, or like hell. I can only speculate and expectorate why when I do not know. In my city of lost places, it's the 1st anniversary of my wife's death. Her clothing is still in our dresser and hanging in my closet, and the black framed family photo collage from her hospital room still sits in my living room on her former makeup table, and her makeup is still in my bathroom with her tweezers and scissors and razor, and whatever has not yet been cut is torn apart, and I feel her with me and not, and realize sometimes it's easiest to love your mate unconditionally when she no longer expects anything of you. Instrumental after Ohana. Rain in varying degrees of hardness, you fall on our place at the corner of fidelity. Someone has uploaded photos of you at play, and I recall your fingers. Forget the threats. I am soaked after walking my dog, and I wonder how wet your place is. Being from Cleveland, I'm really bummed that I can no longer read my LeBron James poems. I need to write new ones given the news. But we were also talking earlier about Prince, and then I walked in here and we have this beautiful purple paint, and so I'd like to read this poem. The song lines in it are lines that Prince sang in his songs, including Joan Osborne's song, which he covered. So this poem is entitled From Genesis to Exodus, after Prince Rogers Nelson. In the beginning, there was God, and God was much more than a B-side to Purple Rain, the single before I Would Die For You. God was the one I called faggot in high school several years before I knew better and became a true believer and bisexual. God was ubiquitous on MTV the summer I entered the Marine Corps at 17 and exited the Marine Corps still 17. Dazed, you're gonna have to fight your own damn war. God was there, purple on screen during my first blowjob at the appropriately named Tower Drive-In. And he was always there on my clock radio in Wilkes Villa, seen and known, unseen and unknowable in my homeless backpack in Cascade Park, plugged into the table cassette player at the Lorain County Community College Library, and in the background as I went down for the first time on Cassie's Raspberry Hooray. God was still there, a prince of a man, as I made it through college, cut off my wannabe Jerry curl, took a job at the gay bar, lost and found my identities again and again, and even when, through enforced sobriety and concrete cell walls, I watched 1999 come and go and raved until the joy monastic. Joan Osborne asked, what if God was one of us? And he was. And he walked among us. And often we knew him not, especially when he became Jehovah's Witness and exorcised his songs from YouTube and bought into chemtrail conspiracy theories, Percocet pantomimes, and a fentanyl flatline. Because living can be painful, even when you're God, especially when you're God. And in the 21st century, God was still here with us, even as TMZ declared him dead. And though I live here on Alphabet Street, no psalm of mine can capture his new power glory. I love you more than I did when you were mine. Oh, thank you so much. I have one more poem I'd like to read to y'all. It's kind of my philosophy still, in many ways. Even though I was told recently that I needed to wear my eyeglasses everywhere I went, I'm still like reticent to do it for some reason now. But this poem is not about that, though its title is Lens. Violence! Silence. Violence. Silence! Less is more and more is less, and silence is most golden to the rich and oppressive, and would be impressive if not for the give gone missing from nature's desired balance. Give and take, and give and take, and take, and take. The record keeps skipping. Time to pull out the needle. Violence. Silence. Violence. Silence! Stuck in the same groove. Sometimes I feel like an acquisition, running whenever my masters intend, like I'm infected by a control bot, running whenever anyone sticks coins into my slot, like I'm programmed to consume and consume, subsume, take a nap and resume, consume, subsume, because size matters. Bigger is better, stronger, faster. Forget impending disaster. I want to be the $60 million man when I grow down. Can't wake up, need to drink more coffee. Can't go to sleep, need to drink more wine. Always hungry, need more mine all the time in between. I am never satisfied. I dine and dine on more and more swine. Prove the proverb true. I am what I eat. Maybe sometimes you are too. Violence! Silence. Violence. Silence! Distinction blurs, so kill them all and let God sort them out. We human would-be gods can't wait to start sorting the money and land and command the dead leave behind. But first, we need your assistance. Be all that you can be. Join, consume, follow, consume, collect, consume, kill, consume, die, consumed, submission accomplished, violence, silence, violence, silence, contract the compound, distill its essence. Sigh, violence. Vi, silence. Contract it further. Vice, vice. You can spell it either way, with an S or a C. Violence, silence. Vice, vice. Vice, vice, baby. The record keeps skipping. The handle keeps turning. The head I've been helping to squeeze is my own and my children's. Time to pull out the needle. Stop churning the handle. Look in a mirror for a moment. Put my vying and my sighing aside and focus my lens.